We're going to begin. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I understand there's people on this call from the West Coast of California to the state of Israel, other people in other parts of the world. So on behalf of Wider Bridge, my name is Alan Schwartz. I am honored to serve as chair of the board of a Wider Bridge at this unique moment in its history, and I'd like to welcome you all to this call. Thank you for joining us today to observe the 10-year anniversary since the shooting at the Bar Noar LGBT Youth Club in Tel Aviv, in which two young people, Nir Katz and Liz were murdered and many others seriously wounded. This tragedy has played a pivotal role in transforming the Israeli LGBT community and also led to the formation of a Wider Bridge today. 10 years later, unfortunately, the cycle of hate has not ended. Today, the United States is in mourning after 3 mass shootings over the last week, including the worst terrorist attack on the Latino community in US history. While today we remember those at the Bar Noar shooting, let us also take a moment to remember those lost in the shootings over this week here in the United States. May the memories of Nir Katz and Liz and all those who have been killed by agents of hate be a blessing and a source of much hope and much inspiration. We are honored today for this call to have 4 speakers who will all reflect on the Bar Noar shooting and the hopes for the future of the LGBT life and community in Israel and around the world. Each of them will have 7 minutes, and I apologize to all 4 of you that I may interrupt you after those 7 minutes, because we want to allow for time at the end, because we want to have some discussion about all of you who are on this call to have an opportunity to type your questions, which Gregory, our director, will facilitate. In Jewish tradition, one recites the Kaddish on the anniversary of the death of a loved one. The Kaddish, amongst many things, allows mourners to stay connected with their loved ones. It also affords an opportunity to do something good for our loved ones and to keep their memories alive. That is what all 4 of our speakers have done in different ways in keeping the memories of those 2 lost at the Bar Noar shooting alive today, and they have turned it into something greater than a tragedy. More than anyone, this is what our first speaker, Ayala Katz, has done after the murder of her son, Nir. Ayala, you is one of the most inspirational role models that I have ever met or heard in any country in the world. After the death of her son, Nir, she became a champion and advocate for the Israeli LGBT community and has served in many capacities, including chair of Tehillah, the organization for parents and families of Israeli LGBTQ individuals. It is truly an honor and a privilege to ask Ayala to speak today. Ayala?
Thank you so much. After such an introduction, well, this is my firstborn. He made me a mother. And through him, I realized that the world is an amazing place. He was a great kid. I really admired his wisdom, both of the brain and the heart, and learned a lot from him along those 26 years he was with us. Before the hate crime in the Bar Noar, I was aware of all kinds of problems surrounding LGBT parents or people, but I wasn't really, it was through the brain, not through the heart. And only after this murder, I met a lot of people and really realized what the issues people are dealing with. And You know, the first thing that young people who came here to my home after the Bar Noar shooting, they were still shaking and they told us the Bar Noar was a place we could be ourselves. And that was the main thing that the Bar Noar gave those people. The one place, you know, that you can be yourself. And, you know, we all know that in many places we can't really be ourselves. It doesn't matter if it's in school or in the workplace or in other places. We have to adjust to all kinds of things that the society dictates. And if we want to look good, then we have to behave in a certain way. And in the Bar Noar and in other places of the LGBT community, I found that it is much easier just to be yourself. I first learned it from Nir. When he came out, he was 20 years old. And then it took me to a journey to seek for my truth in the world. And that meant at that time, leaving the high-tech industry, giving up the company car and computer and all kinds of travels around the world, and saying, no, I want to do something else with my life. So I went to study for a master's degree in group facilitation. And every change takes me to a different journey. And this murder in the Bar Noar took me to a journey to the LGBT community and to a journey, again, to myself, to realize who I am, what I want to do, what do I want to achieve. And, those 10 years were you can call it like a crazy roller coaster. Took me to places that I never imagined that I will be in, either good places and sad places. We miss Nir a lot. He really misses us. You heard before the cry of this one of the youngest grandkid. We have 7, and it's a shame they don't know their uncle doesn't know them. And during those 10 years, I met a lot of people from the LGBT community. I went to Pride all over the country. I met people in organization. I helped the LGBT association, the Aguda, to form a reporting center. They later called on Nir's name. I was part of discussions to do all kinds of projects like a Nir program for IGI, which is something like the Gay Straight Alliance program in the United States, something similar that happens here in all kinds of mostly non-formal education organizations. And any project that needs my help, wants my help, usually I do that. Even when a Wider Bridge wanted me to talk in San Francisco or some other places, I'm willing to come. One of the things that I see here in Israel is that lots of waves. If I look at this, what's going on with the LGBT community now compared to 10 years ago, you can't compare it. Many more events, many more organizations, many more theater groups, all kinds of transgender groups that didn't exist 10 years ago. Religious community, LGBT religious community that is much, much stronger. And as long as the community gets stronger and bigger and more people are participating, there are waves of rejection from the society, not from the society because the general society has changed the opinion, but from politicians, mostly rabbis, which I believe are frightened from the change. So what they do is try to delegitimize, and they take concepts and twist them around so people cannot be part of it, like saying, oh, you gays are against the concept of family. No, that's exactly what people from the LGBT community are doing. forming families. And the family, the concept of family and the value of family for those religious people is the structure. A man and a woman, that's it. No matter what's inside. And I come and say, no, the essence is different. It doesn't matter if it's a man and a man or a woman alone or two women or a man and a woman. The concept of being together, building something together, empowering each other, loving without condition, that's family, not the structure. But we have to deal with it, and we try, we do it piece by piece. And, you know, as Gandhi said, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win.
Thank you, Ayala. Thank you for your, not only your leadership, but your ongoing inspiration to all of us. So thank you for joining us today. And I'm sure people have questions later, can ask that later. I next want to turn to Ohad Hizki, who is the CEO of the Aguda, which has evolved dramatically under his leadership over the last 3 years, and also since the shooting in the bar Noar. It has truly been a privilege, and I've been really lucky to have been able to work as chair of the board with Ohad over the past several months. So Ohad, could you speak a little bit about where the LGBT community is and how much it's changed over the last 10 years? And also on hate crimes issues in the Nir Katz Center.
Yeah, first of all, it's a big privilege to be a part of this discussion, and thank you for this. So as Ayala said, we, after the attack at the bar Noar 10 years ago, the team of the Aguda back then went to the Israeli police and asked them how many hate crime we have in Israel. Like, we want to understand what is the size of the problem. And you can guess how the answer that we get, that the police said we have zero incident around hate crime in Israel. And it's not because we don't have any hate crimes in Israel. It's because they don't put in their record the things that happen as an LGBTQ hate crime incident. And it was the first idea to establish the Nir Katz Center, that is LGBT hate crime, that deal with hate crime and help people and get them through bad incident. And Moshe probably will tell a bit more about this center and the work that we are doing over there. And after the attack in the bar Noar, it was a very, the community in Israel was in very low place. And since then, I think also a few good things happened. And we understand as a community in Israel what we need to do and what we need, how we need to act. And after this this attack, lots of new volunteers in their 20s and their 30s joined to the organization. And this was a very important, that people understand that they can not sit in their home and live their life, and they need to go out and do something, and to join to the organization and to join to the LGBTQI activism in Israel. And I think this was the first step that changed all the system in the LGBTQ community in Israel, because after a few years, 3 years after the attack, the LGBTQ community in Israel, that we have here almost 15 organizations, a very variety of organization, a youth movement, an educational movement, religion movement, trans movement, geographic organization, and we understand that we cannot be able to do not work together, that we need to understand that we have a shared goal, and probably it's not enough that you have a same goal, because there's an ego and like lots of issues that we have, and we need to put it aside, and we need to understand how we can work together. And 3 years ago, the Aguda established the CEO Forum that is combine all the organization together, and we are working and building program and plans, and we are meeting every month. And this is a huge step for the LGBTQI community, that we need to understand that together we are stronger, because sometimes people or other organizations in the Israeli society try to divide us. And we need to understand that we need to work together for our community and for the goal and for the vision that we have to achieve. And like as an example, last year, we succeed bringing a shared position for all the organization together that work in the Knesset and do official lobbying. This is something that we never had in the Israeli community, in the LGBTQ community. And I think the last thing that we realize after the murder, that is like also a very big thing, that we can't ask for what we deserve. The rights for LGBTQ community, the security for the LGBTQ community in Israel, it's not something that we need to ask from others. And we need, first of all, to understand that it is ours, and we need to demand this. And it's not enough just working in the organization and try to influence about on the government and in the Israeli society. We understand that we need to be a part at the places that decision makers are doing the work, in the municipality arena and in the national arena. And since then, we are more on the street, we are more activists, we are more LGBTQ people are in a very important position and try to influence from the media, from the government, from the parliament in Israel, from the municipality arena. And like, I have a few more minutes, or I'm in 1 minute. Okay, so I think this was really important, and this is lead us to a very historical thing that happened in 2018, last year, at the summer, after the surrogacy law passed in the Knesset, without recognize that men in Israel can do also a surrogacy. And we went, the Israeli community here, with the leading of the Aguda, we did, in the first time of Israel, the first civil rights strike, and we called to LGBTQ community not going to their workplace. And in that day, we had the biggest rally that we had in Israel for equality for the LGBTQ community in Israel, almost 100,000 people at Kikar Rabin. This is amazing. And this is like emphasize the gap that we have here in Israel between what's the Israeli society think in Israel and what's the MK and the politician are doing at the Knesset and the parliament. So.
Thank you, Ohad. I know for a fact you only have touched on a small amount of work that the Aguda is doing, but I want to thank you and the board and the staff for the remarkable amount of work that you do with a small amount of resources. And I know Wider Bridge is very proud of the unity and partnership that we have, which is really a testament and outgrowth of what happened 10 years ago, and keeps Nir and others' memory alive through this relationship that we're proud of. Before I introduce Moshe, I want to let all the people who are participating on the call know that you can type in, if you could please start typing in any questions you have for after the call. There is a box on the side that you can type into, and you can please start typing in any questions or comments you may have. So I would like to ask Moshe to speak next. And Moshe is the director of the Nir Katz Report Center Against Homophobia. Over the past year, you can correct me if my numbers are correct, you've handled over 1,500 cases, and have also set up a new branch for the protection of LGBT youth cyberbullying, which is really something that's a path, which is really a role that other organizations can look to, because it really is at the cutting edge of where these issues are now. And the Nir Katz Center really is a testament to the memory of those whose memories we're remembering today. So Moshe, I give you the floor.
Thank you. So I want to start my story. My story is the story of agency. After hearing the shooting at the Bar Noar, it was a time 10 years ago, as Ayala said, as we all know, and something about that traumatic experience as a gay person took me to put me on mute, like a moratorium stage in life that I wanted to go back, step back from the LGBT community. I wasn't such a big activist back then, but it made me take a few step backs and start reflecting on being gay, the actual identity of being gay. And it took me a few years after this moratorium stage that I've decided to start being an agent for my community. I mean, a long way of being a passenger in the ride of the gay community, of the LGBTQ community. I was a bystander. I watched from the side. I didn't really take any part of being an activist, of being in front stage. Never have I ever took part in any rally besides gay pride. Gay pride is fun. Everyone loves gay pride. It's good music. It's by the beach. And I didn't do any of that. I think that the traumatic experience from the shooting at the Bar Noar walked with me a long way, in the sense of being a part of a collective memory of the LGBTQ community. I mean, I didn't act upon it. I just knew it's there. I knew that people are getting hurt only for the sole reason of being an LGBTQ, of an LGBTQ identity. I think that one of the stages or milestones in my life was my master studying. I took an MA in gender studies, and I realized that being an agent, taking an agency, taking care of my community is not for someone else to do it. When a person sees wrongs done by other people, that person has two choices: either to sit at home, look from afar and giving a comments, or taking part in a movement that can make a change. And at first I was a part of the student body at Bar Ilan University, the university that I took my master's in. And I joined the LGBTQ student body. And from there, I took part in the city that I used to live in, Ramat Gan, and started building or founding a community, a local community in Ramat Gan. I think that building a community is great. It's very important. People feel connected. It makes an identity not only for one person, but it makes identity for the community, for people that are standing by or people that are struggling with social oppression, and suddenly they see a person who's trying to build a community in the sense of livelihood, not only parties, but give help to those who actually needs them. After being in Ramat Gan area for around 2 years, I've decided that I will quit my day job. Everything was volunteering, of course. I used to be a marketing manager, of a call center with lots of employees. And I decided to stop that. I decided that I want to go to give back to my community. I think that the trauma of the Bar Noar shooting led me to work with youth, and not only youth, but an LGBTQ runaway youth. And I started working for Beidro, which is a safe house for LGBT runaways. And I've done that for the past 3 years. Seeing how vulnerable my community is made me impatient with waiting for change. It made me want to take a step forward and start building a community and giving everything that I have in order to make my community stronger and bigger and more sustainable, but in the sense of we are here, we are not going to go anywhere, and we need our rights. And as Ohad said, no one will give us our rights. We have to take our rights. I mean, we're a community that suffers a lot from mistreating, discrimination, and we need to be in the front. We need to make our voices heard. The next thing that I've done while working at Beidro is deciding to go and work for the Aguda, the LGBTQ Association of Israel, and taking the role of the director of the Nir Katz Report Center of Israel. Thinking about trauma is one thing, being in trauma is another, and working in traumatic surroundings is a whole new level of working with my community. As you said, 2018 was by far the most outrageously numbered with hate crimes against the LGBTQ.
One more minute you have, 1 more minute.
Perfect, that's all I need. And while doing that, I discovered that we need to work in 2 levels. The first level is the private person-to-person level. We need to give care, and care is very important when you work, with people. You need to give care to people. You need to see people. You need to hear people in order to lower the levels of trauma. And the second thing is what Ohad said about policymaking. We collect this data to help people in both ways, in the personal level that we help them, and in the community level when we collect everything and then we give this report to the LGBT lobby of the Knesset, or last year we gave it to the President of Israel in order to make changes. So what I'm asking myself all the time, reminding myself and asking everyone that hears me is, that everyone needs to become an agent for change.
Thank you, Moshe, for the inspiring words and for all the good work you do with the Aguda and with the Katz Center and the other groups you work with. As I said earlier, this whole theme of today's call is, yes, we're mourning those who were murdered 10 years ago, but we're also reflecting on the good that people have done that has come out of the Bar Noar shooting.
Alan,
Speaker Arthur Slepian is the founding director and president of A Wider Bridge. It is because of Arthur's vision, his compassion, and his persistence that A Wider Bridge was created, and it is now the change agent that it is today. So thank you, Arthur, for your vision, and I turn over the microphone to you.
Well, thanks so much, Alan. It's truly a pleasure to be on the call today with all of these panelists and with the people who are participating online. I'll start by saying that the horrific shooting and murders at the Bar Noar back in August of 2009 was in some ways for many Americans an introduction to Israel's LGBTQ community. But it was kind of an odd, awkward introduction. It's a strange way to meet people at their moment of grief. And I think what I took away from this more than anything else was how much we didn't know, how much the American LGBT community didn't know about Israel, how much we didn't know about the Israeli LGBTQ community. I think there were two kinds of knowledge that was missing. One I would call context. We didn't really have the right kind of frame or understanding in general to be able to take the events of the Bar Noar and really understand their meaning and their impact. For the Americans on the call, I would say, imagine if there were people who knew nothing about our LGBTQ community, and the first thing they learned about was the murder of Matthew Shepard or the shooting at the Pulse nightclub in Florida. Mm-hmm. Those are important events, in some ways even defining events, but without some broader frame or context of understanding, it really isn't possible to understand what they mean. And I think back in August of 2009, what I saw was that many people in the United States, even among the leaders of our LGBTQ community, they had little or no context to frame the understanding of what happened at the Bar Noar. Questions like, was this an unusual event, or is this kind of homophobic violence common in Israel? What kind of progress had the Israeli LGBTQ community made in achieving basic rights and some semblance of equality? What was life like in the LGBT community, not in times of grief and crisis, but in more normal times? Was it possible to be out and successful in Israel, in business, in politics, in the arts, in media, in the military? And what kind of adult role models did the teens who were coming to the Bar Noar have in Israel? I think much of the work of A Wider Bridge over the past decade has been an attempt to give the American LGBT community and our allies a frame and an understanding with which to make better sense of events in Israel. And I think actually to a remarkable extent, I think we've been successful. I think one indicator of that is our ability to mobilize support for the Israeli community around issues like adoption and surrogacy that really require some sense of nuance and complexity and context to be able to really understand. But I think the second kind of knowledge that was missing was, I think, even more important than context. And that was simply that we didn't know each other. In the aftermath of the Bar Noar, when Israeli LGBT leaders were coming to the United States to mobilize support for their community, most of the leaders here were meeting them for the first time. There was an absence of connection that one meeting wasn't going to fix. I think in science, you can learn a lot through generalities, like the laws of physics, the laws of chemistry, the way a human heart works. Every human heart works pretty much the same way. But what I've learned about building relationships among communities is that it's not the generalities are important, but the particulars. It's about people sitting down across from each other and sharing their stories with one another. Because in building relationships, each human heart is unique. And so in the aftermath of the Barnoa, I made several trips to Israel in the months following, and I met a whole range of people in Israel's LGBT community. And I'm going to name some names because, as I said, I think the particulars are important. I met people like Alicia Alexander and Nora Grinberg, generations of leaders in Israel's transgender community. I met Abigail Sperber and Zoharit Sorek and Daniel Jonas, the leaders in Israel's religious LGBT community. I met Avi Sofer and Mike Hamill of blessed memory and other past and current leaders of the Aguda. I met with political leaders like Itai Pincus and Nitzan Horowitz. And I met cultural leaders like Anat Nir and Tomar Heyman and Yair Hochner. And I met Ayala Katz. And Ayala taught me more about courage and dignity in the face of overwhelming grief than anyone I've ever met. And I developed a deep respect for the work that these people were doing as community leaders. But more than that, they became my friends. They became people that I really cared about. And in some ways, A Wider Bridge at the outset became a very personal project for me. Whether it was the trips we were leading to Israel or the programs we were running in the US, I was sort of like as if I was saying, come to Israel and meet my friends. Meet these people that I care about and admire. And I imagine that if you would meet them, you will also come to care about them and want to support the work that they're doing. And I think it's fair to say that today our communities know each other in a way that was unimaginable a decade ago. Mm-hmm. Whether it's the hundreds of people who've come on our trips or the thousands of people who come to our programs or who come sign our petitions or who donate to support our work and the grants that we're making in Israel, I think all of that is a sense of how far we have come in knowing who we are as people. And A Wider Bridge is so much larger than I might have imagined it was a decade ago. But I think despite the scale of the organization, I think there's still a sense of deep personal connection that pervades our work. Because I think even today, I think joining A Wider Bridge is like being invited into a family. And I think some of that is due to the fact that really a decade ago, this organization was forged in this crucible of grief that was the aftermath of the Barnoa, and in a way which people were being honest and vulnerable with each other. And I think that has helped to build this organization in a way that has made it stronger today.
Arthur, thank you for your words. Thank you for your courage. But thank you for, I think I speak on behalf of everyone here and all the other speakers, thank you for your friendship and your devotion to the cause and to all of us. So again, thank you, Arthur, for this. Is Ty there?
I am.
What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn over the call to Ty Gregory. One of my daily joys is to work in partnership with Ty every day. I think Ty and I spend more time together than people in relationships do sometimes on the telephone every day. And I want to thank you, Ty, for not only your friendship, but your ongoing vision and the work you continue to do to build bridges between the LGBT community in the United States, in North America, and in Israel. So I'm now going to turn over the program for questions to Ty Gregory.
Great, thank you, Alan, for your leadership. You've taken the organization to new heights in your role since January, and it's a wonderful partnership. So thank you, and thank you again to all of our panelists. Your activism inspires all of us to stay involved, and to the 35 people on this call and the hundreds more that will watch this later, you can see that the strength of this story is about us coming together. So I want to thank everyone again. I'd like to turn it over to questions. I'm going to take one that's already on the screen and would encourage you to ask more. And I'm going to go with Jerry's second question, which is about any developments in finding the perpetrator of the shooting and whether the police are still actively trying to solve it. I want to ask Ohad the question first, and then Ayala on her perspective on the answer and how that affects her role and how she thinks about these issues. So first I'll turn it over to Ohad to take the question. You're on mute.
Now, yeah. So this is a really good question, because after 10 years, we don't have any results in this process of the police around the attack in the Noar. And they tried for, like, I think 4 or 5 years to find the person that did this terrible shooting, and they didn't succeed. And it was, according to the police, the most expensive interrogate that we had in Israel. But still, the person that did it is out at the open, and we don't have any knowledge more than this. Ayala, you want to continue?
Before that, I just want a short remark regarding the American connection to the Nir Katz Reporting Center. When the center was initiated in 2012, we were honored that Matthew Shepard's parents came to the event. And then we had the meeting with the American ambassador in Israel, with Dan Shapiro. And it was a great privilege. And they really honored the reporting center with their presence, and it was an amazing event. Regarding the person who made this hate crime, if someone would have asked me 10 years ago if I believed that in 10 years he will not be found, I wouldn't have believed it. I was sure that the Israel police will find him much sooner. But when I saw the time is passing by, I made the decision that I'm not going to give him any power over my life. It took enough life, not just Nir's and Lee's life. He also took, he caused people, two people are in wheelchairs. Many are hurt either physically or mentally, traumatic by this event. So I decided personally not going to give him any power over my life. I'm going to live the fullest way I can. I'm not waiting for anything that for the police to catch him or for him to come out or whatever. It is important that he will be found. It is important mainly for the LGBT community and the Israeli society that he will be caught. But other than that, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm not a private eye or something. So, you know, the Israeli police is doing whatever they can, and probably it's not that much. So that's what we have. That's life.
Thank you both. I want to ask a related question that comes from Michael Sarid. Hello, Michael. And he's asking about the relationship today, 10 years later, between the police and the local LGBTQ community. I want to add to that, and that there was an issue leading up to Tel Aviv Pride, where there was a police raid of a gay sauna in Tel Aviv that was seen sort of as an intimidation tactics. So I'm wondering sort of what efforts from the Nir Katz Reporting Center and the LGBT community has led to change within the police department, and if you could also touch on some of the remaining challenges, stigmas, and work left to do. So maybe I'll start with Ohad again for this question and move to Moshe.
Yeah. The relationship, I think, with the LGBTQ community and the police in the world is a complicated relationship. It's and also here, and we have historical issues. Back then in the 80s, we had what we called here in Israel a pink reshimot,
lists.
Yeah, a pink list. So that they wrote the names of LGBTQ members, and
looking for them and something like this. So now we are in a very close relationship. We won't call this a good relationship, but a very close relationship. And there's open discussion with the LGBTQ community and the Israeli police. And in most of the time, they want to help us and they want to be more sensitive. It's not all the time work. It's the last 2 or 3 years, we have in the Israeli department a person that his role is the connection with the LGBTQ community. And he works with Moshe, and Moshe will tell it a bit more in 1 second. But this is a really big progress because maybe at the street, we don't see lots of big change, but in the structure of the police as an organization, things starting to change. So this is a good thing. And I will give Moshe time to tell more.
Thank you. I think that a part of making a change in huge organizations such as the police is all about building bridges and trying to find the right people to talk to in the police and trying to push inside the organization to get contacts and good contacts. And then after explaining everything that we need from the police, we need to be very adamant from the one hand, and on the other hand, we have to be very kind. It's a very delicate job maintaining a good connection with the police. I would say that the connection today is much better than it used to be 3 or 4 years ago. But still, we need to take, it's like baby steps, building a bridge between the LGBT community and the police after having such a long and some would say horrific history with the police. I think that we are going in the direction of making somewhat a good connection and having them understand our needs from the police. As regarding to a question or a statement in the beginning of this session, the note or the label that the police needs to have to mark an LGBT hate crime, I mean, Ayala waits for a long time. I'm waiting for a long time, but I'm pretty sure I need to be optimistic in these times. I have to have a little bit of faith in the police in order to make changes. So this is my take on the relationship with the police.
Great, thank you both. The next question comes from Rabbi Rosalind in Jerusalem, Shalom. And the question is about building allies in the broader community outside of the LGBTQ space. This sounds like a great question for Ayala. Ayala, how have you personally and through the work of Tehillah, along with the organized community efforts, done work to build relationships with non-LGBT activists, allies, and helping to continue to move this story forward?
Well, I'm not in Tehillah for many years now, but the thing is that each of the LGBT organizations is trying to build bridges to places in the society. For example, the religious LGBT community is building bridges with the religious organizations outside the LGBT community, having discussions with the rabbis, having discussions with all kinds of places. One of the events, the yearly events that the Aguda has initiated is called Pride in the Living Room. if I can translate it literally. And that means this year, like in 50 homes in Israel, there were meetings in one evening with the community, with people. People opened their houses. There was one speaker and many people who came to listen. And it happened in religious places, in secular places, all over the country. The thing is, sometimes when you build those bridges to organizations, sometimes doors are being slammed at your face. So you need to work like the door is slammed, you have to go through the window or through other places to build, like Arthur mentioned, at the end it's one-on-one. You get to meet the people and talk to the people, and that's the only way to build the bridges.
If I may, I want to add a note. A part of the Nir Katz Report Center, as Ellen mentioned earlier, we have an anti-bullying and LGBT anti-bullying online volunteers. It's a staff, 15 volunteers. We have, I'm directing this center also. And what we do there is we reach out to people that posted an anti and homophobic post, and we reach out and we do it by two ways. The first way is that we comment on the post publicly in order for other people, bystanders, to see that they are not alone. Homophobic comments will get reacted upon. And the second thing is that we reach out personally on a private message to the offender, and we start a conversation, not really negotiating, but trying to make the offender try to see our side of the story. And homo will be the widest spread curse that a person can say in Israel, be very degrading. And what we do is try to make people understand that homo, gay, transgender, and so on is not a curse, and we try to change stands with people.
Another example from a few years ago, we had the reporting center got a complaint about a kindergarten teacher in one of the cities that didn't treat well a family of two mothers. So the reporting center actually initiated a meeting with the kindergarten teachers of that city and brought people from Choshen, from the education organization of the community, of people who came and told their personal stories. And you know, that way you get, when the reporting center gets a complaint, things can be done, like with the bus company, that there were several complaints about misbehaving of bus drivers. So the reporting center could initiate a meeting with drivers at that company, and that way to change a little bit the conversation and the language of those drivers and their managers. So that's also part of the things that the Aguda is doing.
Great, thank you. The last question comes from Bruce Shenitz, and then we're going to close. And that is about the Orthodox LGBTQ community. And how do you measure change in both the modern Orthodox and traditional space, as well as the Haredim and ultra-Orthodox space, where it's even more challenging? If you can talk about the evolution of the work and some of the exciting things happening now, that would be great. Let's start with Ohad.
We had like at the last summer in 2018, we like had a serve in the Israeli society, and we for the first time realized that most of 65% from the religion parts in Israel are pro LGBTQ rights in Israel. And this is something that is quite interesting, because it's sometimes we are thinking that we have a bigger gap between those groups in the Israeli society, and this is not the situation. And we see in the last few years more people from those groups, from religion groups in Israel, are getting out from the closet and being more safe and feeling more safe and being more themselves. And this one is like the biggest revolution of the Israeli LGBTQ here, because when you are gay and you are in your family and in your environment, and when you are trans like this and bi or lesbian or whatever, it's the influence of this is very important about what's happened in those society. And also we see lots of work that happened in the religion organization. Few years ago, Batkol and Chavruta, the religion organization here, established a project that called the Shoval, that is like an educational project for the religion community here in Israel, and they doing amazing work. Also, IGI have their youth group that for religion LGBTQ kids all over Israel, and they also doing very important work in that field. And we still have lots of work to do, not just in the religion Jewish part, also in the Arab Palestinian groups in Israel. And it's something that is in progress, but it's a start, yeah.
I'd like to ask Arthur to add on to that.
Sure. You know, the very first program that A Wider Bridge did in the United States was bringing several of the leaders of Israel's religious LGBT community to come to the US to speak. And at the time, their work was mostly about creating spaces for people to find each other and support each other, in some ways very inward looking, to make sure that people knew in the community that they were not alone, that there were other religious LGBT people out there. And over the last decade, I think we've seen their work become so much more outward facing and activism, and working to create real change inside the modern Orthodox and the ultra-Orthodox world, and having dialogue with rabbis and really trying to move the sense of the community forward, and being much more visible about who they are, and making sure that people understand that there are LGBT people in all of the synagogues and in religious centers across Israel. So I think it's been really inspiring to see the growth and the evolution of the work of Israel's religious LGBT community.
Well, thank you, Arthur. So I've seen a couple other questions that are a little off topic, but I'll include them in my answer. We've gotten some questions about the Creating Change Conference with the National LGBT Task Force, the DC Dyke March. Hello to AJ Campbell, that was pivotal in helping us with the response to that issue. And I'll close by answering the question, how do we handle issues around anti-Semitism and anti-Israel in the LGBT space in America? And the answer is through all the activists that you've been hearing. Too often we focus on the politics. We focus on facts and figures and histories and things like that. But the reality is these stories, just like LGBT stories, are undeniable. And it's through building personal relationships with Israelis themselves and the activism they're doing in Israel that we can authentically change the tone of the conversation around Israel in some of the most difficult parts of our movement in the US. But more so, when people are trying to distract from the important work that's happening in Israel, they're the ones that are trying to hijack the conversation, not us as LGBT activists. You know, it can be true that there are challenges with the conflict and the Palestinians are working on rights and that we can care about that conversation without denying the important work that the Aguda and Tehillah and Hoshen and Bat Kol and Havruta are doing every single day. We can care about more than one social issue at a time and walk the walk on both. So that's how we can effectively respond to those kinds of challenges. To tie everything together, this is a decade of activism that's happened since this crisis, and unfortunately, we still have challenges. Just last week, there was a teenager who's living in Beit Dror, which is one of the youth shelters, was stabbed blocks away from the center, and that was a traumatic event. It happened the same week as Shira Bonke's murder at the Jerusalem March, and it happened during the week of the Bar Noar assassination 10 years ago. These are sad reminders that there's still decades of work ahead. And to answer another question, what can we do at home? We need to stay engaged with our Israeli partners through the work of A Wider Bridge, through the work of the Aguda and our partners. There's so much that we can do to bring it to our communities, whether it's our synagogues, our LGBT organizations, our friends and family. We need to share these stories, and we hope that you'll partner with us and our staff and our board members here in the US to bring those opportunities to your community, to learn how you can support the incredible work that's happening on the ground in Israel. I hope that we can do this 10 years from now and look back on great strides in the Arab space, the Orthodox space, the smallest periphery towns that right now don't have any role models for LGBTQ youth. We have a long way to go, and the best so that we can achieve it is by doing it together. So I want to thank everyone, especially our panelists, for joining us today. This is just the first time we've used Zoom as a technology, but I think we can all agree it's a much cheaper, easier way to engage our constituencies and our friends with our Israeli partners. So look forward to more topics, more different issues that we can cover together. And we also would love your feedback on what kind of content we can bring through this media of Zoom to you. So please be in touch with us on that as well. And with that, I want to wish everyone a wonderful day, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. And thank you again all for joining us. להתראות. See you later.